Most people don't fail because they're weak. They fail because they were never programmed to win in the first place. From birth, society installs a default mental operating system, one designed to make you agreeable, controllable, and predictable. You're told that kindness always wins, that patience is a virtue, that being liked is more important than being respected. And you believe it because everyone around you believes it too. They run on the same faulty code, but Machiavelli wrote an entirely different software. One meant not for peace, but for power. If you want to reshape your life into something dangerous, into something respected, feared, and quietly envied, then you must first do the unthinkable. Uninstall the mind you were given and rewrite it with one designed to conquer. This involves internalizing 7 Machiavellian beliefs. First, understand that emotions are data, not commands. Most people are emotional slaves in disguise. They dress up their outbursts as being honest and their tears as being authentic. But for Machiavelli, emotions are just one thing, inputs, not orders. Your fear is a data point telling you where your power ends. Your anger is a signal that someone has crossed a line. Your jealousy is a compass showing you exactly what you want, but pretend you don't. But here's the key. You never let these emotions steer the wheel. The dangerous mind treats emotions like weather patterns. You check them, note the forecast, and plan accordingly, but you don't cancel the mission because of rain, and you don't walk into a storm without armor. Machiavellians are emotional strategists. They might feel deeply, but they weaponize their feelings. Never worship them. Second, believe that power hides in perception. To a Machiavellian, truth is optional. Perception is everything. If people believe you're powerful, they treat you accordingly. If they believe you're weak, even if you're not, they step on you without hesitation. This is the brutal logic of optics. A silent man is seen as wise. A calm reaction is mistaken for inner control, and a cold look makes people rethink disrespect. You don't need to be intimidating. You need to look like someone who knows something others don't. Power is 80% illusion, 20% execution. Most people get stuck trying to prove themselves. The Machiavellian never plays that game. He doesn't prove. He implies, he lets the mystery do the talking. Third, know that to control the frame is to control the game. Every conversation, every conflict, every relationship runs on an invisible script, a frame. The person who sets the frame decides the rules. The person who accepts it becomes a player in someone else's game. The average mind walks into a room and wonders how to fit in. The Machiavellian walks in and rewrites the entire tone of the room. For example, if someone insults you, don't defend yourself. Ask why they're so obsessed with you. If someone questions your abilities, respond with a smirk, not an explanation. If someone tries to dominate the conversation, pause and speak second. Always second, because second has power. The mind trained in this belief doesn't just react to the world. It reframes it constantly because he knows the moment you let someone else define what something means, you've already lost control. Fourth, see connection as a tool, not a crutch. Weak minds chase connection because they fear being alone. They enter friendships and relationships as beggars, seeking attention, affection, or meaning. But Machiavelli didn't chase connection. He crafted it deliberately, strategically. To him, human bonds are not spiritual sanctuaries. They're alliances. Some short-term, some lifelong, but all serving a purpose. The dangerous mind doesn't build emotional dependence. He builds emotional leverage. He gives just enough to make others curious. He listens more than he speaks, gathering ammunition. He offers loyalty, but only to those who earn it through strength, not through proximity. And when a connection starts weakening him instead of sharpening him, he cuts the cord without hesitation. Fifth, realize that isolation isn't weakness. It's reinforcement. Modern society treats solitude as sickness. If you're not constantly busy, constantly social, constantly posting, you must be falling behind. But the Machiavellian knows that real power is refined in isolation. Isolation is not loneliness. It's rehearsal. It's where the mental software is updated, uncorrupted by noise. While others are caught in the dopamine loop, scrolling, comparing, reacting, the dangerous mind is doing something else entirely. Training his focus, refining his tolerance for boredom, and calculating his next move without distraction. Most people are afraid of their own thoughts. That's why they fill every moment with chatter or chaos. The Machiavellian seeks silence because silence sharpens strategy. Sixth, accept that morality is movable. Here's where most people flinch. They want power, but they want it without dirt. They want results, but with clean hands. They want to do what they perceive as the right thing, even when the right thing gets them nowhere. But Machiavelli was unapologetic. If your morality always outweighs your ambition, you'll never escape mediocrity. This doesn't mean being evil, it means being adaptable, fluid. Morality must be customized to context. When deception protects your mission, use it. When manipulation prevents destruction, employ it. When kindness becomes a weakness, cut it out. Like rot. To be dangerous, you must be able to hold two ideas at once, that you will be just when you can, and you will be ruthless when you must. Because in this world, only flexible morality survives the fire and still climbs the throne. Seventh, and the final belief that separates the pretenders from the truly dangerous, is that peace is a temporary strategy, not a permanent goal. Most people chase peace like it's the final reward of life. The Machiavellian knows peace is just a tactic, a moment of quiet used to rebuild, reposition, and strike again. He understands that the game never ends, that influence is never permanent, that power must be maintained, defended, and recalibrated every single day. So he doesn't rest too long, he doesn't celebrate too loudly, and he never ever lets comfort become his new cage. Because the moment you think you're safe is the exact moment someone starts plotting to take it all from you. Now that you know the beliefs, the real question is, can you install them? Because once you do, you don't just become harder to manipulate, you become impossible to control. You don't need to be violent to be dangerous. In fact, the most dangerous minds are the quietest. They don't announce their transformation. They don't scream rebellion. They simply change silently, surgically, until they're unrecognizable to the weak version they used to be. And now that the 7 core beliefs are planted, it's time to see what happens when you actually start living by them. This is where people around you begin to shift. Some grow distant, others become intimidated. But most revealing of all, you'll start noticing things you were blind to before. For instance, they'll try to shame your power. Once you stop responding like a people pleaser, once you begin moving like someone with internal authority, they'll notice, but they won't congratulate you. Instead, they'll label your new mindset with phrases like, "You've changed," or "You're cold now," or "Why are you acting so distant?" Understand this. These aren't observations. These are defense mechanisms. You've disrupted their control script. You're no longer easily predicted, no longer giving easy access to your emotions, no longer giving explanations they can manipulate. And the Machiavellian understands that power must sometimes wear the mask of indifference, not to punish others, but to protect the frame. Let them talk. Let them guess. That confusion you see in their eyes is the price of rewiring your mind. That's your signal that you're doing it right. Every reaction you give is now currency. Before you gave reactions freely. Someone insulted you, you argued. Someone ghosted you, you chased. Someone crossed a line, you forgave without them even asking. But a Machiavellian doesn't move on impulse. He moves on return on investment. You don't react unless it's useful. You don't engage unless it increases leverage. You don't give clarity unless it serves your strategy. This does one thing very quickly. It drives people insane. They can't read you. They can't provoke you. They can't tell if you care, if you're angry, or if you're plotting, and that's the point. Once your reactions are no longer free, your presence becomes expensive, and the moment you become expensive to access, you become dangerous to underestimate. You begin to see relationships as power exchanges. Before this shift, you were taught to think of relationships, whether romantic, professional, or platonic, as sacred spaces, as unconditional, as emotional, safe zones. But once your mind upgrades, you begin to see what was really happening the whole time. Every relationship is a power exchange, every compliment given, every silence held, every favor offered. These are not random acts of connection. They are moves in a psychological negotiation. Now, the dangerous mind doesn't become paranoid. He doesn't assume everyone is fake. What he does is far more potent. He simply starts watching the game in real time. He observes who speaks to impress and who speaks to manipulate. who flatters to support and who flatters to control, and who gives with loyalty versus who gives with a leash. This shift alone removes 90% of the people in your life who only seemed supportive because now you see their real purpose. And once you see it, you stop being used without realizing it. You start using silence as a psychological weapon. The untrained mind fills silence out of fear. They speak to ease tension, to seek approval, to erase discomfort. But the Machiavellian understands silence is pressure. It makes people fidget, over-explain, reveal too much. And once you've adopted this operating system, you realize that speaking less doesn't make you passive. It makes you dangerously unpredictable. Imagine this. In a negotiation, you let them talk first, and they reveal their terms too early. In a confrontation, you pause and let the silence grow thick, making them start second-guessing themselves. In a group, you observe while others compete for validation. And when you do speak, it lands like thunder. Most people are addicted to being heard. Machiavellians are addicted to being remembered, and silence used with precision creates an aura that cannot be faked. It tells people that you don't need this conversation to validate you. That alone rewrites the entire power dynamic. You stop arguing with the unworthy. One of the greatest signs that your mind is being rewritten is this. You stop explaining yourself to people who aren't worth your explanation. Because once you've internalized the belief that perception is power and that truth doesn't always matter, you realize that most arguments are traps. They're not about clarity. They're about control. You see this in the coworker who pretends to just be asking questions, the friend who insults you through veiled jokes, or the partner who picks fights to destabilize your focus. Before you'd try to defend your integrity. Now you smile. You nod. You walk away because a dangerous mind knows that silence, mystery, and strategic exit leave a far deeper impression than any counterattack ever could. Your detachment starts disturbing people when you operate with the belief of seeing connection as a tool, not a crutch. You begin to unhook yourself emotionally from people's chaos. You're no longer the one who stays on the call for hours out of obligation. You're no longer the therapist friend who gives advice to people who never change. You're no longer the partner who sacrifices your vision just to maintain peace. And when that detachment kicks in, when you move like someone who doesn't need anyone, people panic. They sense that your self-worth isn't up for negotiation, that you're not clinging, chasing, or performing. And that terrifies them because suddenly they're not the center of your attention anymore. You are. Your enemies stop attacking directly. Here's the final sign that your Machiavellian mindset is taking root. Your enemies stop confronting you head-on. Why? Because they no longer know what you'll do. You've become unreadable, unshakable, unpredictable. You don't respond like they expect. You don't play fair. You don't argue in public. You don't reveal your moves. And worst of all, you've learned to play long games. So instead of open attacks, they resort to whispers, passive aggression, reputation games, subtle sabotage. But by then, it's too late for them because you're already 10 moves ahead, watching, waiting, calculating. And you don't flinch because you're not here to win approval. You're here to build quiet power and let them choke on their own assumptions. This is what happens when the beliefs aren't just words, but internalized code. You no longer need to force your dominance. You radiate it. You no longer chase status. You become it. The mind is your kingdom now. And you're no longer a subject. You're the ruler. There comes a moment in every transformation where the change becomes permanent. You no longer try to be strategic. It's automatic. You no longer pretend to be calm. You are calm. You no longer play the game. You control the board. By this point, the Machiavellian operating system is no longer something you think about. It's something you run in silence in the background with precision. But now comes the upgrade, because the beliefs were just the beginning. To make them truly dangerous, you must combine them with behavioral recalibration. You must embody the code, not just know it. Here's how that looks. You begin to orchestrate emotion instead of suppress it. In the early stages of mental rewiring, people try to suppress their emotions, to control them by bottling them up. But Machiavelli didn't suppress emotion. He channeled it. Master manipulators don't kill their rage or their fear. They weaponize it, shape it, disguise it. Anger becomes fuel for precision. Fear becomes motivation for preparation. Sadness becomes clarity, a mirror to show what needs to change. You don't push these feelings down. You hold them like fire, close enough to light the path, far enough not to burn. This is emotional mastery, not numbness, but emotional discipline. You feel the full storm and still walk in a straight line. You now calculate instead of react. Most people live on impulse. They're slaves to the moment. Someone says something offensive, instant reaction. Someone betrays them, emotional outburst. Someone ignores them, desperate validation. But with the Machiavellian OS fully running, your first instinct is no longer reaction. It's calculation. You no longer ask how you feel about this. Instead, you ask, what are they trying to get me to feel? What do they want me to say? How do I break the pattern without revealing my plan? This kind of mind doesn't fire back. It dissects. And when you calculate instead of react, you stop being a puppet in someone else's performance. You become the invisible writer. They dance to your silence. You refuse to be measured by metrics you didn't approve. Before the rewrite, your value was measured by society's defaults, such as how many followers you have, how busy you appear, or how many people like you. But the dangerous mind doesn't accept those terms. He builds his own scoreboard, asking himself, did I maintain control? Today, when others try to shake me, did I speak less but say more? Did I gain leverage without being obvious? You begin to realize value is internal, reputation is optional, and visibility is a choice. Machiavellians don't chase metrics, they manufacture meaning. The moment someone tries to measure you by their standards, you flip the script. And the moment you stop needing external validation to feel powerful, you become unshakable. You no longer fear being misunderstood. Weak minds are obsessed with being understood. They explain themselves to critics. They defend themselves to doubters. They try to make everyone see who they truly are. But the Machiavellian mind doesn't beg for clarity. It thrives in ambiguity because you understand a brutal truth. The more mysterious you are, the more others talk about you. The more silent you are, the more they project onto you. The more misunderstood you are, the more powerful you seem. Clarity is overrated, confusion breeds curiosity, and curiosity breeds obsession. So you let them talk, you let them guess, and you never rush to correct their image of you because their confusion is your camouflage. You use praise like poisoned honey. The average person praises out of sincerity. They say nice things when they mean them. And while that sounds noble, it's predictable, soft, easy to manipulate. But a Machiavellian uses praise strategically. You compliment someone not to be liked, but to build trust before the cut. You praise your enemy in public to put them to sleep. You flatter someone's ego not because it's true, but because it weakens their guard. Praise, when used tactically, becomes a drug. People get addicted to your approval. And once they're hooked, they become compliant, even loyal. Praise, when rare and precise, creates power far more durable than criticism ever could. And the best part, they won't even realize you're controlling them with kindness. You understand that visibility is vulnerability. One of the deadliest lessons from Machiavelli's mind is this: the more visible you are, the more targetable you become. This is why true power often hides. The most dangerous people in the room are rarely the loudest. They don't wear their dominance like jewelry. They don't need applause. They don't overshare their plans. Instead, they operate like shadows. You now realize that mystery is a weapon, that being underestimated is leverage, that being loud makes you predictable, and being predictable makes you easy to defeat. So, you move quietly, you influence silently, and when you strike, it feels like lightning from a clear sky. You realize your mind is no longer yours alone. Once you truly internalize the Machiavellian OS, a strange thing happens. You begin to realize your mind is now dangerous not just to others, but to yourself too. Because now you can justify your coldness, rationalize your detachment, and excuse your manipulation. This is where most fall. They turn strategy into cruelty, detachment into emotional decay. They start to forget the purpose of their power. But a true Machiavellian remembers that power is a tool, not a drug. Control is a method, not a meaning. And ruthlessness without direction is just self-destruction in disguise. So he builds a final firewall inside his mind, a line he will not cross. Because he knows if you lose your humanity in the pursuit of dominance, you've already been conquered by yourself. This is the paradox of the dangerous mind. It is cold but not cruel, silent but not passive, strategic but never hollow. And once you reach this level, there's no going back. You've replaced obedience with observation, reactivity with refinement, desperation with design. You no longer move like the masses. You move like a mind that was built to rule from the shadows. You don't become dangerous by accident. You become dangerous when every thought, every silence, every move is calculated not to impress but to position. By now, this Machiavellian operating system is fully alive within you. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't beg to be understood. It simply functions, always scanning the terrain, always anticipating the unseen threat, always protecting what matters without exposing what it is. But here's the final level, the part no one tells you. Machiavellian strength isn't just about defeating others. It's about ruling yourself with brutal precision. Here's what that looks like in its final elite form. You begin to manipulate time itself. Most people are trapped in reactive time. They move according to the urgency of others. Texts demand replies. Trends demand participation. Deadlines trigger panic. But the Machiavellian doesn't live on that clock. He operates on psychological time. He pauses when others rush. He waits when others chase. He delays gratification not because he lacks desire, but because he refuses to be enslaved by it. When you control your pacing, you create the illusion of power. Others believe you must be busy, important, unshakable. But in truth, you've simply chosen not to dance to their beat. He who controls the tempo controls the outcome. You anticipate betrayal without letting it poison you. A mind this sharp knows that betrayal is not a possibility. It's an eventuality. No loyalty is permanent. No alliance is immune. People betray for fear, for greed, for attention, or for nothing at all. But here's the trick. You don't become bitter. You become prepared. You build multiple paths. You keep emotional distance where needed. You let people think they have more of you than they really do. You see it coming not as paranoia, but as foresight. You read the cracks in the handshake, the shift in tone, the delay in replies. You feel it in your spine before the blade is even drawn. But when it comes, you don't flinch. You've already rehearsed this moment in silence. You learn to disappear. Strategically, power often demands withdrawal, not out of fear, but out of necessity. There are moments when staying visible weakens your edge, when speaking more reveals too much, when reacting exposes your state of mind. So the Machiavellian vanishes, not forever, just long enough to be missed, feared, wondered about. You withdraw from the group chat. You go dark after a public win. You retreat while they gossip and resurface when they've forgotten how to attack. The point is never absence. The point is impact through unpredictability. When people can't locate you, they can't target you. When people can't read you, they can't use you. When people can't expect you, they begin to respect you. You reward loyalty quietly and punish betrayal silently. The final sign of a dangerous mind is restraint, not just in attack, but in response. You no longer perform loyalty. You no longer advertise punishment. You simply act with finality. If someone proves themselves, you elevate them. No praise, no parade, just more access. If someone breaks trust, you don't scream, you don't fight, you don't threaten, you simply cut off their oxygen. You remove energy, time, trust without announcement. And they feel it immediately. You've taught them the most powerful rule in your world. Disloyalty isn't corrected. It's deleted. And the silence that follows your absence speaks louder than vengeance ever could.